I've been thinking a lot about this tension that keeps popping up on this show, and that is that science and solutions take time. Yet there are problems in the ocean and along the coast that are urgent. It feels like we need to act on them now. The good news is that there are lots of different players in the government, in for-profit, in nonprofit, and they each have their strengths and their weaknesses. They can each move at different speeds. And nobody understands this ecosystem better than Hilary Bryant, who's my guest on today's program. She is currently the Director of Donor Services at the Community Foundation of Santa Cruz County, which means she works with donors and philanthropists who are funding this work. But she's also been the mayor. She started her own for-profit company. She's been on countless nonprofit boards. So she understands all of these pieces and all of these players and how they need to come together to advance the solutions that we all want to see. This is Science Solutions Santa Cruz. I'm Jonathan Hicken. Enjoy. In the studio today, I have Hilary Bryant, who is currently the Director of Donor Services at the Community Foundation of Santa Cruz County. Although, Hilary, you have worn like pretty much every hat imaginable as it relates to Science Solutions Santa Cruz.
A few.
Yeah, so...
yes, as my husband says, what are you going to do when you grow up? It's one of those.
Actually, honestly, when I was coming in to prepare for this, I was like, you're kind of like a bit of a role model for me because you've served on city council and been mayor. I have some aspirations about that at some point in the future.
We should talk.
You have been a startup founder. You currently work in philanthropy and in the nonprofit space. You've been on countless boards. You're a parent.
I'm so sorry.
You're a surfer. I mean, you have in your career, in your life, you have touched pretty much every corner of this community, and in one way or another, you've been serving it, and in many ways, the environment of the ocean. So, I mean, you know more about this topic than arguably anybody that's been on the show.
And yet, as my children remind me, I am not a Santa Cruz local.
Wait, where?
Mind blown from the start.
Wait, where are you from?
Originally, I was born in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Oh my goodness!
But I grew up in New Hampshire.
When did you come out here then?
I came out here in high school, and not to Santa Cruz. My dad was working for General Electric over in San Jose, so over on the other side of the hill. And I wanted to study marine science, and I really wanted to go to UCSC because everyone from my family had gone to school back east. That was the expectation. And I went to UCSC and thought, I do not want to leave this place. It's magical. And I started working in Ron Schusterman's lab my first year at UCSC.
No kidding.
Yes.
I feel like your at least your professional career is defined by like serving this community. Can you recall a moment where you were like, this is what I'm going to do?
I can recall the moment I fell in love with Santa Cruz. That first time my mom drove us over the hill and you got to the summit and you looked down and there was fog. And I've always grown up, my mom had a rule about 15 minutes to the ocean. She's an avid sailor. So we moved a lot, but it was always, I have to be close to the ocean. I'll move with you, but I need to have that proximity. And living over the hill did not feel like that. And then you got to the summit and you drove down and you went, oh my gosh, there's the ocean. I could feel it. And I just fell in love from the beginning. And I had, an ocean view. I could surf check from Porter College. That's why I selected the dorm that I did. And I just think it's just such a magical community. I've been in love with it since the moment I arrived, and I haven't left. And I think it's a story for a lot of people in Santa Cruz that they went to UC Santa Cruz and they never left. But that took a lot of work to figure out a way to afford to live here. And my first job out of college was being a real estate broker for almost 20 years. I worked with Karen Properties, but I really got to know the community.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, you get to know it. But that passion for science was started when I was very, very young. I wanted to be a marine biologist. I loved whales. And after 2 years of working in Ron's lab with Colleen Wright-Muth, I was cutting fish. And one day I went home and I was like, I cannot smell like fish anymore. And I don't know what I'm going to do with this. And I love marine mammals, but I just can't figure out how I'm going to make a living doing this. And I switched to more molecular cellular biology.
And so Science Solutions Santa Cruz, right? That's the premise of the show. And you have seen decades now of science leading to solutions.
Yes.
And I rattled off all of the things that you've done in your career, but what strikes me as really unique about it is that you have seen this all play out from the government side of things, from the private sector side of things, from the nonprofit sector side of things. Now you're deeply embedded with local philanthropists. And I am so curious to unpack with you today how these different players have roles in driving these solutions forward. So let's start maybe, going back to your time on city council and mayor. How did you perceive these different sectors and the roles that they played back then? And maybe how did you leverage those different partners at the time?
Great question. I had run for city council thinking it was really important to think about the small business owners. My husband and I own a small animal hospital, Westside Animal Hospital. And the challenges that we faced at that time, much younger than I am now, young couple trying to raise kids and keep our small business open and running. It was real. And us, the university is obviously our largest employer, but there are so many small business owners in our community, and our community is so creative, and it's driven by these small business owners. We're never going to go back to the days of, Wrigley gum production and large manufacturing. It just doesn't happen. But I could understand the importance of not only having and supporting these small businesses, but then the connection between that and the university and the research that was coming out of there, and then the tech sector that was growing. So it's that science and solutions and collaboration. And from the lens of a council member, you look at this and think, I think in Santa Cruz, we all come from the place of our passion for the community drives a lot of the great things that happen and a lot of our debates. And I could see that the importance of having these different sectors collaborate was the only way that we were going to really work through our challenges. And I had come onto council after the 2008 financial crisis, and we kept having budget cut after budget cut after budget cut. And it was a challenging time to think through not only how are we going to manage this now in this moment, but what are we setting up future generations for? Because on council, as a government official, most of the time the decisions you're making aren't really going to take place until 4-8 years down the road. So it's not just the immediate you have to think about, it's the future.
What has changed since the time you were on council? I mean, we're 20 years ago or so to now.
So long.
Well, can you identify if the conversation around particularly like marine and coastal environmental issues then versus now, has the tone of the conversation in the community changed at all?
I think it has, but I think the challenge with these conversations, I tell the story because I think it sort of sets the table for that discussion. When I was on council, Gary Griggs came in and he talked about, climate change is happening, the sea level is rising. We have to start thinking about, and coastal erosion is happening every day. Whether it's in front of you or not, it is happening. And we have to think about these things long term. And you need to think about, do you need to move the lighthouse back? Is West Cliff Drive going to be sustainable? All these conversations. So this is 20 something years ago. And at some point I had a conversation with John Laird and he said, gosh, when I was mayor, he came and said the same thing. And Donna Meyer said, when I was mayor, he came and said the same thing. And there are years and years and years where experts like Gary Griggs are coming and telling city government, this is really happening. Government takes it very seriously, but the expense and the trying to grapple with how are we going to do this ends up getting pushed down the road. We'll do something in the immediate, but we can't really figure out how to manage it. So we'll push it down the road. And I don't think we can do it anymore. I think that's the change. I think to your question, the change is that now we are seeing it and it is so dramatic that you cannot put a Band-Aid on it. And I think people are finally starting to recognize that these things it's coming to the point where if you don't really think seriously about how to address it, the fix is no longer even an option.
I've noticed that these sort of dramatic events, right? Like those big storms over the last few years, right? That kind of kicks a community into high gear a bit.
Yes.
And that's kind of unfortunate in a way of like, oh man, I wish it didn't take something so dramatic to kind of get us focused on it. But kind of going into the machinations of local government, if you think back, and maybe at that time you guys were kicking the can down the road a bit, and now the current city council and the current mayor maybe have sort of a different call of like, okay, you can't kick the can down the road anymore. The community's really tuned in. So what has to change, like in terms of the way that they're making decisions today on council to enable them to move in a way that you weren't able to 20 years ago?
I think we have to, as a community, come together and set some priorities around that. I think the challenge with being on council, whether it was 20 years ago or now, is that oftentimes the loudest voices in the room are not necessarily representative of the entire community. And it doesn't matter the discussion or the argument or the debate or what's on the agenda. It's the people who may have made the priority to be in chambers may not be the people who are, there's so many, our community is really diverse and you have to listen to a lot of voices. And I think for this council and every council that comes up, that really talking about these challenges we're facing and not just planning for it, because there's a lot of, not just in Santa Cruz, but in government in general, make a plan, you got the plan, you feel good about the plan, you put the plan on the shelf and you move on. And that doesn't address the, like, did we do anything with that plan? And so I think that this council, next council, future councils, and I probably having a generally elected mayor that has the ability to have a longer term vision will help. But saying, here's what we need to do, and here's how we're going to get to it, and here's how we're going to get to it, not just in a theoretical way, but a financial way, a community-driven way, and really start moving forward, not just talking about it. The talking always happens, but the action needs to happen too.
So let's unpack maybe using a case study of kind of how this plays out, and then also bringing back kind of the different sectors here and their roles. So the kind of the two case studies that come to mind, and dealer's choice on which one you want to dig into. I think about the CZU fires.
Yep.
And I think about the big storm damage. Now to be clear, Gary has come on the show, and Tiffany Wise West has been on the show. So we've heard
They're the experts.
They're the experts.
They're the experts. I'm just the talking head. They're the experts.
But they haven't been in the private sector or as elected leaders or now in philanthropy quite like you have. So let's look at these case studies, and starting with the sort of the government role. But then I would love to hear from your perspective, like, how do we as a community from these different sectors, how do we work together to act now in a way that we haven't been able to in the past?
Yeah, I think that's, the one thing about whether it's Westcliff Drive, CZU fires, the floods, all of these things, the concern I have on any of these topics is that, and you alluded to it earlier, is that we move because of a disaster. And then once the disaster is over, or is at least over for us in the immediate moment, we move on to the next thing. It's like the earthquake happens and all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I really have to move those vases off the edge of the shelf because it's all going to break. We do those things as a response to disaster, and we come out and help our neighbors, and we're incredibly good in those moments. This community rallies like no other. I've seen it firsthand. I believe in the power of it. We come together, we help each other, we're collaborative, we look for solutions. But then once the immediacy of the problem happens and is managed, a lot of us move on. And we either forget about it or we're still in it, but we're trying to figure out how to manage it more on our own. And there will be more fires. You take Westcliff, there will be more storms. These things are going to continue to happen. At the Community Foundation, we were managing disaster funds one at a time, COVID, fires, floods. And all of a sudden we realized, we need to have a disaster endowment, because it's not about if there will be another disaster, it's when, and the community needs to be prepared. We need to have funds ready to go for these things. It not even as large of a scale, but the end of the wharf fell off. There's tsunamis that have hit the harbor on numerous occasions. There are a lot of these things, and the ability to address them in the immediate moment, but then to actually do something about it. Both from a government perspective, but the Community Foundation was built on the in 1982 when the floods happened. The community came together and said, we can't rely on government to do this alone, and we need to be prepared. And that was the founding, literally, of the Community Foundation.
Came out of a disaster.
Came out of a disaster.
So real quick, you were talking about kind of like being able to quickly mobilize funds and react to things in the moment, and then an endowment. For those of us who aren't aware of those two sort of mechanisms, what are they and how can they be deployed differently?
So there are certainly immediate funds that are available, both through, different from a grant funding. We have sources of immediate funds, some from the foundation itself, but a lot of them are from what are called donor advised funds, or from private philanthropic dollars, from donors who care about our community, and in moments of crisis, or in moments like the Watsonville Community Hospital is going to close, people will mobilize those funds for immediate action. An endowment is a permanent fund, whether at the Community Foundation or anywhere else, that is started and has a principal amount of money that is there forever in perpetuity. It's always available. So it allows for funding not just in the immediate moment, but for all future generations. Really, that's the intent.
And those are kind of like investment funds, right? Where they kick out some amount.
Funds are invested, and then every year a certain amount of those invested amount is released, but then the rest of it above and beyond is put back into the fund to allow the fund to grow.
And that's how it is able to be
it's
perpetual,
magic
right?
money.
Yeah.
Magic. It's amazing, and it's an amazing tool.
Yeah.
And it really has allowed both the foundation and universities use endowments a lot, but it gives that ability to know that there'll be money there for the future.
We're kind of what we're talking about right now is like, how quickly can we respond, and are we responding on sort of these ad hoc one-off moments, or are we prepared to sort of act forever or whenever? And that brings me back to these case studies and the different sectors and their roles. Because when I typically think about, government versus business, right? The simplest version of it, I'm like, well, business can move faster.
Yes.
Government can't. But government is in its best version representing everybody, and business is not. And so what are these different sectors' roles when it comes to solution making?
Well, if you think, take Westcliff, for example. Government has the ability to move these large amounts of money. Infrastructure projects are incredibly expensive. And I know the numbers are, they'd make you stop in your tracks and you think, how can it possibly cost this much? It may or may not have to cost this much, but it costs this much. So you need government to be able to move those large funds. And quite frankly, a situation like Westcliff Drive, there's 7 different agencies that govern that. So it's not just like the city of Santa Cruz can decide, and if we make a decision, we can do it. You have to talk to Coastal Commission. You have to talk to the sanctuary. There are a number of, and the county owns part. It's not just you can go and make that decision. However, there's business implications to that. You think about the tourism industry, all of the, so much of the business in Santa Cruz is driven by our coast in one way or another. And that, it just matters. Even if you think about the Surfonomics study that Save the Waves just did, $192 million annually brought into our community by surfing.
Surfing
and you
alone.
think, okay, how's that possible? But it's not just all the equipments and surfboards and wetsuits. It's all the things that surfing brings. And then think about the just iconic photos of Steamer Lane and its glory, and it's magical. And all of those things play into these conversations. And then for a situation like Westcliff, you have neighbors that are very impacted. You have community members that use it as their recreation that may not live in the neighborhood but want to be able to access it. You have access issues around that. And it really is something that I believe belongs to a much broader community. This should be a park and recreational resource for everyone. It is an incredible place, and I'm fortunate enough to live close to it. However, I want everybody to be able to enjoy it, and I want future generations to be able to enjoy it. So it's a really complex problem, and there's not one immediate solution. But if you can't leverage things like, large infrastructure dollars through government and business getting involved and community members getting involved, we're not going to be able to figure out a solution that works.
This is like this fundamental tension that I keep I keep discovering in conversations on the show is that in order to do the best work, we need to be serving everybody.
Yes.
And that often happens through government. And government is expensive and government is slow.
Yes.
And at the same time, we have this new urgency to solve environmental problems that are here and now. And there's this fundamental tension of, well, which lever do we pull, and do we accept that, hey, we're going to move slowly because we want to represent everybody's needs and we want to prepare Westcliff, for example, for future generations. But also, these storms are coming in hot every year. Like, we can't wait.
Yes.
So this is just this fascinating tension. And I certainly haven't figured out what the solution is.
When you figure it out, you're running for government. And then government's creating challenges for us. I mean, we are having real conversations right now about, are we going to have oil drilling off our coast again? I mean, it's not only a helpful lever, but it's a real challenging lever. So it's slow to move, and it can create a whole nother set of problems that you thought, gosh, I really figured when we built this, established the sanctuary in 1992 that we got this oil drilling thing at least under control right here. And that is not the case. It's a very real threat. And then how does that change? You have oil derricks, and what's the value of the view? What happens if there's a spill? The Monterey Bay is a thriving sanctuary full of so many amazing, everything from the kelp forest to the marine mammals that not only live here but swim through here. And yet we're having real conversations about things that could ultimately destroy it.
So I'm relatively new to the area. I moved here in 2013. I know on Santa Cruz terms, I'm still a baby.
A baby.
And yet, like, one thing that has become clear to me is that the work that happened in the 70s, 80s, 90s, all of these protections that you and others helped pioneer.
I had very little to do it, but let's Dan Hafley.
Yes, please.
Sam Farr, Secretary Leon Panetta. I mean, I'll start with Dan Hafley because he's unsung hero of all of this. Fred Keeley. We have amazing people that have been working on this their entire careers, but that made that happen for us.
This, the economy, the culture, that was all built, or not all, but in large part built on this belief that we had sort of a common agreement about protecting the ocean, protecting the bay being this fundamental tenet that we were going to build around. And so when businesses have popped up, all of these university research stations, so much has been able to be built here because we had this agreement, right? We had this societal agreement that this mattered to us. And now we're in this position where that sort of fundamental belief upon which we have built so much is now starting to get shaky. Like, that to me is sad. I mean, that's like...
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
It's terrifying. And yet, part of the reason that philanthropy is so important is that the environmental fight is never over. We will always need to be doing this. And that's unfortunate, but that's the reality. And we have got to protect this resource for our future generations. We are so lucky. There's not a day that goes by that I don't wake up in this town and go, I'm so lucky to live here. I don't know what happened in the universe that landed me in this community, but I love it. And that's why I continue to do all these millions of jobs that I've had. But I do it from a deep, deep, deep care for this community and the people that live here. And we have fundamental disagreements about all kinds of things. And yet I understand that those disagreements come because so many of us feel that. And it's sad to me, this is just something I've seen, is that oftentimes, because people are frustrated, they talk about Santa Cruz in ways that they would not talk about in Santa Cruz. When they leave Santa Cruz, people say, oh, it's the best place, and all these things, and all this incredible stuff happening. But then, yet when we're here, we tend to focus on the negatives. And I'm sure that is for many communities what happens. but I try to, as often as I can, celebrate all the incredible things that are happening here.
Me too. I mean, and what we say, we're always hardest on the ones we love most,
Yes,
right?
yes,
and
yes.
right?
Maybe that's it. That's it.
I think that's it.
Yeah,
I mean, truly.
yeah.
And I mean, I totally agree with you. And a big part of the reason I even started this show was a celebration, right?
Yeah.
Of all of this incredible stuff that's happening, and it's something that I feel proud of.
You should. You've had amazing people on the show, aside from myself. They've all been incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, they really, and those are people that live in our community and do such good work every day on behalf of our community in whatever area they're working in. And I love that so much of the work that we're doing together is science-based. I mean, I think that's really important. That having, oftentimes, I think having a university that is not forgotten, but people just don't recognize what an incredible resource it brings to Santa Cruz, and that the research that's coming out of it in every area really it lifts us all up, and it's going to make the world a better place. And we have to be reminded of that sometimes.
That passion that I think you and I share. I mean, let's kind of go into the philanthropy side of things a little bit now. So I imagine you're talking to donors and generous folks in our community who care about this stuff. And I know Community Foundation, y'all work on many issues in the community.
Many issues.
And we're not going to talk about all of them today. We'll focus.
We'd have another hour
exactly.
or two.
But specifically as it relates to the Bay and to the coast and the environment, outdoor recreation, all that stuff. What are you hearing when it comes from the conversations you're having with donors? Is there a pattern or a trend that you see in what these generous people care about most right now?
I think every donor is different. Every person is different. We have funds like the Bay of Life Fund, started by Franz Lanting and Chris Ekstrom, that is really around the idea of connecting our land all the way down to our fog line, the coast, and those connections and how they really matter, and how so many of our incredible nonprofits are working in areas that touch some part of that.
Yeah, and just to be clear, Franz and Chris are world-renowned National Geographic photographers who live right here in the community.
Who have taken photographs of all these incredible things and love our community and give back to our community. We have a fund that was started by Harold Whittam, who was a mathematician, professor emeritus, who passed away several years ago at from UCSC, and he used his retirement to create a fund that's now an endowment in his honor, named after him. That's an environmental endowment, and he created it at the time because he loved hiking the trails around Santa Cruz County. He was passionate about our community. And what he left was a gift for future generations, where it can fund things like Santa Cruz Mountain Trail Stewards, and it can fund Amamutsan Land Trust, and it can fund the Land Trust of Santa Cruz County. It can help make sure that those trails that he loved so much and he was so passionate about be here forever. And then at the foundation, we have a climate strike fund, where we have recognized through our partners like the Land Trust Santa Cruz County and Trust for Public Lands and Amamutsan Land Trust that that we have an ability right now. At times, there are pieces of property that could be developed, but might better serve not just the community members, but the wildlife that live here in being protected. And so when those special pieces of property come up, like the Farini Ranch, it's often hard you can't, as somebody who has seen the difference between private business and a nonprofit, even to be able to compete with a developer that's ready to go and looking for those opportunities is incredibly challenging. The Land Trust may be a well-resourced and well-equipped nonprofit, but to be able to do that is not necessarily possible, and there's regulations around that as well. But if we have a fund that can let the funds be available for the purchase and then be repaid and replenished, so a loan fund where you can go in, we call it a strike fund because it's really to be able to come in, make the purchase, and then the funds eventually are repaid when there's time to replenish it. that allows for us to make these large land purchases that would not otherwise happen. And then we can protect, not just pieces of land, but wildlife corridors. And those are tools that philanthropy can bring to a community that really makes a difference.
If you haven't visited the Seymour Marine Discovery Center at UC Santa Cruz in a while, or ever, you really should come visit us. We are right on the bluffs of the beautiful Monterey Bay, with an aquarium full of local species and a bunch of hands-on science exhibits that help you understand what's happening in our ocean and along our coast. We are connecting the incredible research happening at UC Santa Cruz with real-world solutions for our coastal community. We don't want science to just sit on a shelf. We want it to shape decisions, inspire kids, and help our community feel equipped to act. So if you care about the future of our ocean and our coastal community, or you just want to experience a place that makes you feel a little more connected to it, come visit us at the Seymour Marine Discovery Center. Science Solutions, Santa Cruz. That to me, like this conversation about roles, right? And the role of philanthropy here, I think, and the role of the community foundation in this particular case is, we do exist in this, and, capitalism is the system that we all are bought into. And if we can't compete with financial interests from other, from the seller and the other buyers that might be interested in the same thing, if we can't mobilize capital quickly, then we can't protect this place that we love so deeply. And so to me, I'm like, that is a unique role of philanthropy in all of this, is to be able to mobilize the funds quickly to be able to compete.
Yes. And sometimes it takes donors in their lifetime contributing to that. But then in the case of Harold Whittam, that's a bequest. That's something that, people may not have the financial capacity to give in their lifetime the way they may want to, or quite frankly, it's so expensive to live here that many people are charitably minded, and yet it's so expensive to, right now, get a tank of gas and buy your groceries and pay your bills and pay for your home, that they may not give in their lifetime. But if you own a home in Santa Cruz County and there's not somebody that needs that home, if you have no heirs, that is an incredibly powerful potential philanthropic gift when you no longer need that home. One of the great joys in my role at the Community Foundation is I get to work with folks thinking about their estate plans and thinking about what they want their legacy to be. And most of that is rooted in a deep passion for our community. And often it's a range of charitable causes that they love, and that to me is one of the magical things about Santa Cruz, is that feeling of, I want to give back. I think there are many, 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 many people in this community that do that in a variety of different ways, big and small, whether it's of their time or their talent or of their financial wherewithal, because they really want to contribute to our community being better.
So let's lay out the sort of the landscape of philanthropy from how you see it, more or less, and all sectors, all kinds of work included in this. Do you have an estimate of how much philanthropic money is flowing into the community at any given time?
Oh my gosh,
that's
a great question, and I have no idea.
Okay, all right.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
It's enormous,
yeah,
because it's not just donors, individuals, but it's companies like Driscoll's that really give back in so many ways, and not just to our community, but to the communities that they're working in. There are a number of very philanthropically minded businesses and people in our community. And I'm continually surprised and impressed by where I see people trying to contribute and the ways that they're contributing. And, if the food bank puts out a call, people rally. And people are giving of their time to do everything from build houses with Habitat for Humanity to volunteer at the animal shelter. It's just, it really, it runs the gamut, and the amount of philanthropy that our community does, I would say, is outsized for the size of our community.
Yeah, I would say especially if you sort of start to factor in the value of, put a monetary like value on volunteerism too, which look at Seymour Center that absolutely has a monetary value for sure.
Absolutely.
And so I don't know. I'm going to just like venture a guess. I bet you like we're in the sort of hundreds of millions of dollars range on an annual basis.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
I would imagine. If all things in.
Yeah.
And potentially could be more.
Yeah. Honestly,
it really,
yeah.
it's really pretty amazing because we manage just a small portion of that.
Yeah.
And certainly many, many donors go directly to their favorite charitable organization. And then if you just think about the power of some of those big philanthropic gifts of homes and property and land, and it's a lot. It's a lot. But that, again, goes to the generosity of Santa Cruz.
And let's now look at the landscape of nonprofits working on environmental or sort of environmental adjacent issues. I mean, a little bit of research. It looks like several dozen.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
We have a lot of nonprofits in our county.
At one point, we had
the highest per. Yes, we did. I don't know if that's still the number, but yeah, we have a lot of nonprofits.
I think it was, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago now. It was the highest per capita nonprofits of any city in California.
And I don't know the current statistic, but we have a lot, and that's not to despair. They're doing incredible work.
Yeah,
incredible work.
And so when we look, if we just kind of like at a glance, and I can, Seymour Center is a nonprofit. We are affiliated with the university, but we're a 501c3 nonprofit. So we're in that group. Yeah. What do you think the strengths and the weaknesses are of environmental nonprofit work in Santa Cruz County right now?
I think there's a couple of things. One that I have found is that often, especially because the climate change and the challenges we're facing right now are so overwhelming, that I often think people assume their philanthropic dollars it's not going to go as far. What is my $100 donation going to do to manage coastal erosion? And that, I think, is unfortunate because I feel like there are lots of things that we can do with small amounts of money and time and volunteerism to participate in whether it is the land or the sea, or these nonprofits doing very good work throughout our county. And we have a lot to protect. I mean, it's not just the ocean, but there's a lot beyond that: estuaries and mountains and trails, and all of that it's important, and it all makes what is so special about our community, and we need to protect as much as we can. And I think the other challenge that a lot of our nonprofits face, whether in the science environmental sector or any other, is because we have so many, how do I distinguish what I do? I think this particularly is relevant in the ocean space. Who does the beach cleanups? They do the beach cleanups. They do the beach cleanups. And it's not because those aren't important, but what are you doing? You're protecting the bay. We're protecting the bay. They're protecting the bay. What is it that you do that is unique? And I think the strongest case for our nonprofits is when there's no duplicative efforts. And sometimes you see that ends up being, well, let's work together. And sometimes you see that almost like in a startup where you pivot. What are we really focused on? What really is our sweet spot? And I think that in this moment where grant funding is being cut and there's a lot of challenges on a variety of levels for our local nonprofits, to sort of step back and say, what is it that we really do that is necessary, important, and that we are best at? And, sort of thinking through that the strategic plan, but it's important and it matters and it makes a difference not only for you as an organization, but when you're talking to donors. And I think that is one of the challenges that has been facing our nonprofit community, but that provides an opportunity too.
Couple things. There was so much rich reflection in there. I think to your most recent point, this idea of differentiation. I actually have another podcast. It's called Designing Tomorrow, and it's with Eric Ressler, who runs Cosmic, which is a local design agency. Great
local design agency.
And they work with social impact brands kind of around the world. And on that podcast, we often talk about how important, especially now in the sort of the media landscape that we're in right now, the power and the importance of clear messaging and positioning and communication of that messaging and positioning. And it's been my sense that in this community, I think for plenty of really good reasons, that there is a lot of overlap especially in the ocean space. A lot of overlap where sometimes I kind of feel like, man, maybe we would be able to be more impactful if we started to merge some of these organizations, or if we all sat down at a table and were like, hey, let's really define clearly what our niches are so that we can mobilize the funds in the most impactful way possible. And so in some ways, I'm like calling on the community foundation, like, hey, help us do that, right? Help us pay for that work.
Well, and I can't speak to that. I'm not the boss of the Community Foundation. I'll leave that to Susan True. She's an excellent example.
Yes, she is.
But, I think that there is also the part that we do so well is collaboration. And I think, and maybe there needs to be a convener for that, but I think that our nonprofits are a very collaborative community of folks. And from the leadership all the way down to everybody working in the nonprofit, it's how can we support you? So having those frank conversations, I think, is a real opportunity for folks to look at what do we do well, what do you do well, and how do we define ourselves? And to your point, the marketing branding, because it not only helps you, but it helps, again, us talk to people who are donors, or for funders to say, oh, that does matter. And the work that all these organizations do is incredibly important. It's just, let's make sure that we're focused on what needs to happen, and that we're not missing areas where, gosh, who's got that?
Yeah. If we map it all out,
Yeah.
maybe we'll see these gaps.
Yes.
I can imagine if I am not a major donor, just to be clear, but if I were and I was kind of in this position of like, I would like to help the environment, and I come to you and I'm like, where do I start?
Yes.
I want to have the biggest impact. Who do I give to? Right? And if it's not clear where they should put their money to have the impact they care about, there's probably that moment of hesitation of like, ooh, maybe not. Maybe I'm going to give somewhere else, or maybe I'm not going to give right now. And so that, the power of this clear differentiation could actually bring in net more support to have that clarity.
Well, and I think that the clarity is important, and for organizations to know where are we needing to drive and focus, and areas that we need to focus, but also having the data to support the work that they've done, not just for the donors, but for themselves, to really look at that. And the Community Foundation, we worked on every organization, whether it's a nonprofit or a for-profit, looking at the data and understanding, what are we doing well, and where are we falling short, and how can we improve that, and who are we serving, and what's the impact of that? And for a donor, thinking about where is the impact of my dollar, and how is it going to make things better, and can I see the results of that, is really important.
I think, like, qualitatively speaking, I look at, the things that we were just a minute ago talking about that we love, right? This beautiful nature resources that we have in the Bay, and just this richness of it. So, like, qualitatively, I'm like, something's working.
Something's working.
Right? We have a community of people that care. We have kids who know about my son's in kindergarten, and he comes home the other day.
That happened. He was just a baby a second ago. Oh,
I know.
They grow up so fast.
He's losing his front tooth. He's stoked. He comes home the other day. He's like, Dad, I have a new least favorite animal. And I'm like, what's that? He goes, urchins. And it's
really?
Yeah, because he learned in his class about urchins eating kelp and these urchin barons and everything. And I was like, holy moly, like, we have a community where kindergartners are learning about urchin barons.
Yes.
Right? And so all that to say, right, like, we have a community of people who understand, who care, who want to act, and we have been seeing results. And so, there's this question of, it's on us as nonprofits to be able to define, in many cases, where we're headed and what that next stage of impact looks like. I don't know, I'm fired up. I get together with these executive directors of these other environmental nonprofits regularly for happy hour, and we
I love that.
We commiserate and we share. But this might be the next thing I bring to the table is, hey, we should do like a really clear differentiation exercise.
It would be really helpful.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
it would be helpful for the organizations themselves. It would be helpful for the community, and really thinking through that, because it's not that the work is not so important. It's just, what is it, what's our secret sauce? What's our sweet spot? And we have so much work to do.
Yeah.
How can we make sure that we're covering all of our bases and collaborate with each other? I mean, our community. I just think networking and collaboration is so important. So important.
If you could wave a magic wand and sort of guarantee that one environmental solution were to be successfully implemented over the next, let's say, 10 or 20 years, what would be that one thing that you think that we as a community really need to solve and really need to get right?
Oh, I want the magic wand. The thing that, and maybe this is left over from my time on council, that I worry about so much beyond the climate change and all the things that are happening on our coast, I think we have to figure out water as a resource. And we work on that at the Community Foundation. We have a regional water management foundation. We do a lot of work. Tim Carson and his team are incredible. However, we're just a couple of drought years away from another crisis in that area. And I think the state of California is feeling that. I think our country is feeling that. I think climate change is pushing it on us. I worry about water in a way that I think that it's often forgotten when it's not a problem. And as we're building, the state is requiring us to build. We need more housing, and we have a resource that is a precious resource. And that when you've got a community of our size that's primarily based on surface water, you're just a couple drought seasons away from having a real problem again. And I think we have not figured that out. And if I had a magic wand, I'd make sure we had plenty of water. And I know it's hard to think about when we've had a couple of flood years and but that, and it's not to diminish all these challenges are real. And I lots of things that keep me up at night. I don't sleep much.
So I've heard from Dave.
I know. Yeah. I'm not a big sleeper. But I really think that if I had the magic wand, we have to address water issues, and not just for the city of Santa Cruz, for the entire county and for the region. And it's one of those things, I think that's the challenge with a lot of these environmental challenges that we face. There's a focus on our own place-based problems. And yet, if you cannot think about it broadly and regionally, you're not really going to fix it. You can't fix coastal erosion in just the city of Santa Cruz and think nothing else matters. It's just it's like, the implications for all of the things that we do are, if you're just self-focused, you're really not fixing the problem, and you're probably creating a lot of other problems. So again, it goes back to that theme of collaboration. We have to work together, and we have to work together on a bigger, regional, larger scale.
Speaking of what, you're reminding me, maybe I'll get Tim on or somebody else.
Oh, you have to have Tim on.
Yeah.
Or Rob Schwartz is also. Yeah, we just have amazing people working for us on that front, and who are really thinking about that regional, what are the big problems, and what do we need to do to solve them.
Yeah, quick fun fact is, this blew my mind when I learned it, was that Santa Cruz is 100% water independent, meaning we don't import or export any water that we drink, which is sort of a blessing and a curse, right?
Blessing and a curse.
Yeah, so
I think we were really focused on it, and in particular when I was on council, we were very focused on it because we're in a crisis.
That's right.
We're in a crisis. And yet when we move on from that, I mean, you look at the challenges, this is beyond Colorado River, the state there are a lot of real issues around water. And I think, again, it's that if the disaster's not in front of you, it's fine. I'm going to put the faces right on the edge of the shelf until the earthquake happens. Fine. It's going to be fine.
All right, Hilary, we're going to try something new.
All right.
I'm going to try something new here. I'm gonna hit you with a closing round of lightning questions.
Oh, fun!
I'm
ready.
Round. Five lightning round questions.
You need a buzzer.
Okay, all right.
I really
Good
want
idea.
a buzzer. I like a buzzer. We have a dance buzzer at the office. It's like a 15 second
Dance break.
And I'm always hitting it, and I'm always getting in trouble because someone's like, "I'm on a conference call." Dance break.
All right, when you come on next, we're gonna do a dance break in the middle of the show.
15 second.
All right. Hilary, if you weren't doing the job you're doing now, what would your alternate reality career be?
I'm beyond the professional sports age, am I? I would be president.
of the United States of America?
I can do a better
Hell
job.
yeah, you could.
The bar has been set low enough that yes.
I don't think that's a controversial statement. I agree. Question number
Just
2.
don't ask my husband because he will say no.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever received from a mentor?
Be a mentor.
Beautiful. What is your favorite outdoor spot for a quick hit of nature?
Anywhere in the ocean. Anywhere. Just throw me. Add water. Just add water. Just add water. I'm happy, girl.
What is one book or movie or show that you would recommend to fans of this show, Science Solutions Santa Cruz?
Not totally sciencey, but it's called It's Only Drowning by David Litt. He's a former Obama speechwriter, and I recently interviewed him at Bookshop Santa Cruz. And the reason, I know this is just a quick lightning round, but I'm making it longer, because it goes to what I think is one of the biggest challenges that we're facing in our country today is we cannot figure out how to talk to each other. When we are on different ends of the political spectrum, we have got to find some common ground. We have got to do this. It is not optional anymore. We are getting so far apart and so losing our ability to communicate with each other that I am fearful for our future generations to think that I'm not going to do public service. It doesn't work. That government doesn't work. We've got to start talking to each other. And the premise of this book is his brother-in-law's, he's on the right, or he's on the left, his brother-in-law is on the right. And their common ground is learning how, or going surfing together during COVID.
Amazing.
So, it's worth a read.
That's actually inspiring. Like, I'm wondering if anybody out there has listened to this program and thinks it's a bunch of baloney and disagrees with anything, I want to have you on. I want to have them on to talk about why.
I am telling you, I learn the most from people I disagree with the most, because you have to be able to listen. You have to be able to listen to each other. We are never going to be able to move through the challenges we face unless we listen to those who we disagree.
Last question. What gives you the most environmental hope right now?
Oh, our youth. Your son deciding that he doesn't like urchins, his least favorite animal. I think that my children, other children, my children who are not children anymore, they are not allowed to listen to the show. They're still my babies. I just think that, we always put things on the next generation. But when I see the spark in somebody who's a child who's just getting excited about science and learning and all of those things, it gives me hope, because we have to have the next generation of scientists. I can't stand that my daughter feels like I can't be a research scientist anymore because nobody cares about it. That makes me sad. So I think what gives me hope is that there are still kids who decide that urchins aren't good because all the challenges that science can still spark imagination.
Yeah. Is there anything that we didn't get to today, or anything you want to plug before we wrap up?
Just how fabulous I think your show is.
Thank you.
And how everybody should visit the Seymour Center, and that we are so fortunate to have this resource in our community. I think that people, again, I go back to people forget about the university because it's not so present and it's on the hill, but that the science that's coming out of the university is really going to make a difference for future generations. And it gives me hope too.
Well, thank you. It was so good to see you, and so good to have you on today, Hilary.
Thank you for having me.
All right, that does it for the pod. Thank you, Hilary. Thank you so much for coming on today's program. Thanks to everybody at the Community Foundation of Santa Cruz County. Thank you to Edith Belmont for editing. Thank you to Cassidy Beach for production. Thank you to Valerie Sichu for distribution and socials. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.